Welcome to How to Decorate from Ballard Designs, a weekly podcast all about the trials and triumphs of decorating and redecorating your home. I'm Caroline, I'm on the marketing team.
And I'm Taryn, and I'm a product designer.
I'm Liz, I head up the creative team.
We're your hosts. Join the expert team at Ballard Designs for tips, tricks, and tales from interior designers, stylists, and other talents in the design world.
Plus, we'll answer your decorating dilemmas at the end of each episode.
We love answering your questions, so don't forget to email us at podcast@ballarddesigns.net.
Now, on with the show.
Okay, so we're back for episode 3 of our outdoor mini-series, and we have got Mark Thompson here on the show. He's the co-owner of 2 iconic Birmingham, Alabama stores, Shop and General. His first store, Shop, is a beloved garden store that started it all. And in 2019, he and his partner Jay opened General, a cafe and general store. He's also been renovating his own gorgeous historic home in the Forest Park neighborhood of Birmingham. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's really nice to be here.
I've been begging you to come because my friend Zoe said that your house was fabulous and that you would be a perfect guest. So thank you for making the trip here.
Yeah, I love Zoe. She's great.
She is. So you've got a garden shop and we're talking all about gardening, but you know what we have never talked about on the show before is how to shop for plants. And this occurred to me as I was shopping for plants last weekend.
Yeah.
Because it's like the thick of spring, everyone's gearing up to do all their planting, but it's very easy to go to the garden store, to be mesmerized and just fill your cart up with stuff. So maybe before we get started talking about that, if you could kind of share like what led you to open your first store, like how did you get here?
So as far as like how I got into this, it's definitely been a lifelong thing. I know specifically, well, when I was really little, like I would like plant potatoes with my papa, my mom's father, and like seeing them grow. And like he had a big, like probably 3-acre garden that he kept like a vegetable garden, and like it was a little away from the house, and like going out there and like planting and seeing them grow and harvesting and all that. So that was like super early. And then when I was 12, my parents moved into a new, like, where they still live, like their forever home. And I remember, like, looking at, I believe it was Better Homes and Gardens, and, like, seeing a drawing of a garden that was, like, it was, like, you can picture this. Like, it was, like, 3 little, like, humps, you know, like, with a soft edge. Yeah. And it had, like, things in the back and things in the middle and things in the front, and like the layers of the things. And I like tore out the picture, I believe, and took it to my dad and said, like, Dad, will you till me this up and I'll plant it? Like, I'm going to make this happen. And so he did along a fence line. Cool. He tilled me my 3 little humps, and I like went to the store with Mom, and we got zinnia seeds and just all these different seeds, and we started the seeds on the screening porch and like learned and read. And so that was when I was 12 going on 13, and that was the beginning. Like that was when I started gardening. So I've always loved it. Also always loved interior stuff, which is what I ended up going to school for, was interior design. But gardening just stuck with me. Like even when I was in college, like if I'd had a bad day or even a good day, like it could have been either, but I would like pull into the garden center, and like one of my friends that knew like college is hard, like I'm supporting myself and like helping my friends even like have food on the table, and like my friend would call and be like you do not need to spend money on plants, and I'd be like, but that's what I do, like. Yeah. And I lived in Sandy Springs at the time, and my neighbors all called my yard the Sandy Springs Botanical Gardens through college. So I've just always loved it. And so then went to school for interior design, worked in the home furnishings industry, like High Point and Atlanta Market, and even Chicago and all those back pre to 2008. And then I ended up working for the company Anthropology after that, after 2008. And when I was in Anthropology, they have a plant budget that they have, or they did back then, have a plant budget for each store, and you like would spend your plant budget. And so I was shopping with a local nursery, and ended up getting a job there on the weekends. So, but to support my habit. So like I figured like if I wasn't spending money and I was working there and I was getting the discount, like I was making money to support my habit and getting a discount. So it was a win-win.
Yeah. What a good addictive habit. I know.
So, and they were really flexible because they loved me being there because I was like into visuals and display and would like turn the store upside down on a Saturday and like completely recreate it. So I did that for 3 years, and then they asked me to manage one of their stores, and I did that for another like 7 years or so. And then that's where Jay, my partner, comes along, and he wants to open a garden shop. He's also been in the garden shop industry his whole life. Wow. And so we were walking our dogs one night, and shop where it is now had a for lease sign. Wow. And we just went for it, basically. We were talking about it, walking the dog, Cedar, we have 2 dogs, but our sweet baby angel is Cedar. And we were walking him, and I was like, that could work. And Jay was like, I guess so, yeah. And so I called, and the rest is history. Like, we signed the lease. I put in a super long notice with my job, told them that I was doing this, worked out the notice, and then at night, like, worked on the store, like, to get it ready. And so we knew Birmingham has a really big gardening industry. There's like almost a little garden shop in every neighborhood. They're all really wonderful. And we knew ours had to be special in some way to stand out. So that's why we have a little iconic English greenhouse. It's a Hartley Botanic greenhouse. And that was the first thing we chose to do because we've got to like look like strong and permanent if we're going to go for this, because there was already such a huge, so that was fun.
That is so cool.
That is an amazing story. So, okay, that was roughly 2017?
It was. Yeah.
Okay, and then you started the general store next door, which, tell everybody about that.
So General, it's in an old grocery store. I know it was a grocery store through the 30s. The building is a really cool brick building that's got the flat front and the transom windows across that are like the cool old glass. And it has like 2 doors and these big bulb glass lanterns that are it's all very original. And it had been in the 50s, it became a TV repair shop called Silvertron. And then in the 80s, it became a restaurant by the same name called Silvertron. So it was this iconic Birmingham cafe restaurant called Silvertron. And it was still open when we opened shop. It was 30-something years old. And it went out of business, and it was empty. And like sort of like the entrepreneur in both of us couldn't like imagine like it just sitting there empty. And I love food, number one. It's like, well, family, God, food, flowers, plants, design, like sort of in that order. But food wins like over a lot of things. And I love to cook and the kitchen. And so I think it was like my heart for like entertaining and having people over. And like there is a little bit of a history of garden shops having cafes. Like Pedersen, I think, has a little bit of a cafe, and Terrain has a little bit of a cafe. And so it wasn't too far-fetched. Even Merrifield, that Jay had worked at in Virginia, had like a little outdoor cafe. So it wasn't too far-fetched. And so we just kind of went for it. But it was in 2020. So there was some pause in there. But and like it's developed and changed, but it has a retail element also. So that's the general store. It has like a little bit of like local grocery and like things that are food related, you know, like lemon squeezers and zesters and wooden spoons and little spreaders and like little practical things, linen cocktail napkins and things you would use for entertaining. So it's sort of that aspect combined with the cafe.
It sounds delightful to me. You wake up on Saturday or Sunday morning, go get your coffee, your breakfast, mosey on over to the garden shop, buy your plants, go home, do your planting.
I don't know why we're sitting here and not there.
When y'all come on whenever.
Yes. Yes. The thing that I found so charming about it too on Instagram, just looking at I've never been, so I have it on my list of places to go, but it's like kind of a gritty building.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that it's kind of an unusual spot, and I love that about it.
So I think both buildings are a little gritty. That's a good word. It's interesting that you observed that. It's a cool observation. I grew up where my parents were hardworking, not a lot of financial, and so we made do a lot. Like I always say, mom would cook rice for dinner, and then we'd have rice pudding for dessert the next night. She was resourceful. She was creative. She was just awesome. So I learned from all that, but our places are put together. They are both not the best buildings. They need a lot of work, really. But we have you paint a scene or you create these moments. So it's got a lot of magic that comes from the display and the imagination and the working within what you have, working within your means to create these little worlds, so
yeah.
And staying inspired to do that, it can be challenging, after a lot of years, but it still is part of what's fun about it.
Yeah, you have this beautiful mural sort of behind the counter.
Yeah, which I did not paint that one. I do like to paint that kind of thing. Hayden paints.
Hayden paints from Instagram, of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so he painted that for Jared Hughes,
right,
for an antique show in Birmingham, our Antiques in the Garden show. We used to do these vignette rooms. They were called tastemakers. We don't do it anymore. As the show has grown, we needed more space for antique dealers. But we used to use that space for that. And Jared was a tastemaker, and that was in his space. And we were opening, and I had this big wall, and I called and I was like, would you sell that? When this is over? And Hayden said yes. And
very cool.
So it amazingly, my friend Lindsay Porter, who's an artist, I borrowed her canvas puller. It's on drop cloth canvas that Hayden painted in his living room here in Atlanta.
Wow.
And I borrowed her canvas puller and pulled it tight and stapled it on, and I put trim around it, real trim. And when I pulled it to the ceiling and looked down, it hit perfectly on those
that's incredible.
12 and a half, I guess they're 12-foot ceilings. It hit literally perfectly. And then I was able to when I got the first layer stapled, razor blade it straight and put the molding over it. And it looks like it was painted on the wall.
I assumed it was. Yeah. Very cool.
That is so awesome. Hayden is amazing too.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
And I had already painted the walls the breakfast room green that they are. And it just happened to look like the two went together. And I'd already ordered it's green quartzite countertops, and I'd already done that. So it all just went together.
Yeah,
amazing.
Organic.
Like it was meant to be. So.
Amazing, because it was.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, I have so many questions about shopping for plants, and I am excited to ask you them because I feel like you're the expert. What should we know before we go into the garden shop before we buy anything? Is there something we need to consider, or can we just go in and start putting stuff in our cart?
I actually love that you're asking this question. First off, I grew up, my mom is a pro shopper, and I think uses it as retail therapy, which people do, and they really do it in the garden shop.
Mm-hmm. Like you did.
Yeah, I did. So, a couple of things that I would speak to on that point. One is expectations. And I've learned this as I've grown and gotten older, but don't always go in to the garden shop or the wholesale flower place for that matter and think that I want this. Go in with an open mind with the expectations that you may find something that is better than what you imagined. So when you get there and you're looking for this exact thing, and you don't have it, a lot of times you're discouraged or you leave that place and you don't even sometimes look around. I watch it happen with customers, but I've also done it myself when I was younger. I don't do it anymore. But go in with an open mind that you may find something better than what you imagined. And that would be one thing. The other thing would be, and we may touch on this in different ways later, but the other thing would be to not be afraid to buy things small. And let them grow. A lot of times, especially in like a big box retail store that's selling plants, they're going to have that item at the peak of its beauty. So as we know as human beings, when you're at the peak, all you can do is go down from there.
Yeah.
I mean, you could get better in some ways, but
Speak for yourself,
truly, no, that sounded terrible actually once I said it. But no, truly, like the peak, that means like that's the pinnacle, and the technically downward is the next obvious place to go. So if I'm looking to throw a party, I may go and buy one of those plants that's like at its peak, like, ooh, look at me.
Yeah.
Okay.
But if I'm going to garden, I usually want to get something that is smaller, that maybe hasn't bloomed yet. Maybe there's some buds, maybe not. Maybe it's just like the leaves are emerging from this plant, but you read the tag or you ask the expert at the garden shop and you buy something that is going to grow in place, and you're going to get to see all the stages of it. You're going to get to see the magic of that plant growing. So
I have made that mistake.
Yeah.
Because I guess in my mind, I'm thinking, if these are all grown at the same time, and this one is the biggest, this is like the healthiest, best amongst this whole table of basil plants or whatever it is. But that is, now that you're saying it, the backwards way to look at it. Huh?
Well, and if you're gonna use that basil that night for dinner and you're gonna clip it and like let it grow again, that would work in that case. But if it's like a hydrangea and that hydrangea's in full bloom, like
that's it for the season.
It for that season, and then you're gonna wait till next year to enjoy it again. So if it's March and you're going in to buy that hydrangea, get the one that's just barely emerging, like where you get to see all the stages. I love the stages of a plant. Like I love the sticks and the little tiny green leaves, and then the bigger green leaves, and then the buds, and then the flowers, and then even the other way around, like when it's the drying flowers.
Oh my gosh, a dried hydrangea?
Yeah, so.
Gorgeous. Still.
Gorgeous, yeah.
So I would say setting expectations, and then not being afraid to buy things small. Patience is super important in gardening. The other thing is, like, in your mind, one question we get a lot is like low maintenance. I want it to be low maintenance. I want it to be low maintenance. Low maintenance really is like a lawn and some hedges that you maybe only have to trim once in a while. If you're really wanting to garden, it's not going to be low maintenance. Like,
right.
You either got to get out there, or you've got to hire somebody to get out there. But you've got to like want to do it and dig in. But like, so knowing what you're getting into with things, and if you really want to garden, being willing to get in and do it.
You tapped into, like, I think that this is the healthiest plant. Can we tell if a plant in the plant store or the big box store is healthy?
That's a good question. So the drainage, is important, and water is important. So if it hasn't been watered consistently, that can put stress on the plant. So you might see, like, it may look perky right then, but you're like, oh, there's some dried leaves underneath. That could be a sign of some stress. Doesn't mean the plant won't improve or do okay, but you might have to cut it back. And that's according if it's an annual or perennial. But if the plant looks healthy, it probably is. And if it doesn't, it's probably not. Like, if they've been overwatered, they're going to look yellow and kind of falling apart and may not have many leaves left. Overwatering is really like the easiest, quickest way to kill something sometimes. But then if it's been underwatered, it's probably going to be brown and crispy, and the leaves may be holding on, but they're not. So I'd say if it looks healthy, it probably is.
Okay.
You could also, if you're like buying a bunch of a shrub, you might take one of the plants out of the pot and like make sure that the roots look healthy, that it doesn't, like if you pick up a plant by the trunk and it like comes right out and like a lot of the dirt stays in the pot, that's probably not rooted very well yet, or it's had root development problems like root rot or something like that.
Okay.
So like, if you want something that's got good roots started, it's probably going to be kind of hard to pull out of that pot, and then you want to loosen up the roots before you plant it. But like good healthy roots are the most important thing. So you might, if you're buying a lot of something or investing in it, you might want to check like pull one out. Like, are these roots strong? Are they good? Is it hard to get out of here? That's a good sign.
Okay. Sometimes they have those like white. The roots are like white, and they it looks like there's like a spider web or something.
Yeah.
Like they're all. Is that a good sign?
Somewhat it is. If you're about to go put it in the ground at home, that's it. That means it's root bound. Is like all that growing around in the circular pattern of the pot. So when you take the pot off, it looks like it's still in a pot. It's just this veiny looking pot that's natural. It's technically root bound, but if the plant's still healthy and you're going to put it in the ground, then that's a good thing. That means it's got good, healthy root system.
Okay.
So that's when you want to break it apart gently and like get those roots. You don't want them, if you dig the hole, they say dig a hole like 1.5 times the size of the pot. So you like soften that soil around. And then you don't want it to just keep growing in that same spiral. You want it to like go down into the dirt, down and out.
Yes.
So breaking up those roots, that's why you do that. You break them up so they'll get into there.
Because I always worry when I'm breaking it up. I'm like, am I destroying these roots? And like,
you're not.
Okay.
No. And like, I mean, some people are probably more gentle than I might be, but I mean, like I'll like really get in there and rip them up, and like sometimes I'll like tap them on the ground a little, like to like loosen it all up. Like I'll like do it this way first, then tap, tap, tap.
Okay.
Like sort of like to like naturally get them loose, and then or like on the side of, like if you've already dug the hole, like tap on the side of the hole, and some of that soil will fall down into the hole, and then just like nestle the roots on in.
Okay, I like that.
I have a question about buying multiples. Okay, so say I bought like 4 camellias, and I love them and they're amazing, and there's one that just didn't make it. And of course it's right in the center of the plantings, right?
Yeah.
So it's 1, 2, dead, 3, 4.
Yeah.
And I love these camellias. What do I do about that space that's now empty?
You have a couple of options.
Okay.
One is to try to find another one of comparable size. It doesn't have to be the exact same size. I actually had this happen with a row of cherry trees at home last year, and we had 13 cherry trees in a row, and one
there's always one
died and didn't make it, and we replaced it, with one a little smaller.
Okay.
But it's looking good. Like this spring, I was like, Jay and I both were like, this is looking good. Like it's going to be fine. And the trunk's a little thinner, but so you could buy another one.
Okay.
And, most likely it was a fluke. Like maybe it got too dry, but when you replant it, be diligent to like make sure you maybe amend the soil, make sure to compact it in, and that there's not air pockets. Because sometimes that can happen if it didn't get like planted well enough and there's air pockets, then it can dry out. So sometimes that's the cause. There's different reasons that it could have had.
Right, because you assume it's all got the same amount of water,
Right.
and light,
It's
and you
right
bought them
next
at the
to its
same
friends.
time.
Yeah.
I did everything exactly the same as I
friended
did
well.
with the other ones.
That's a really,
Yeah.
but you never know. Like I can have a front door and I have 2 plants in matching pots on either side of a symmetrical front door. And this happens a lot to customers. The one on the right just keeps dying. But that area gets sun on a slightly different angle than the one to the left, even though it's only 3 feet. We know it's 3.5, 4 feet over usually. But
It's so annoying.
But it gets a different amount of sun. So you may be getting like a different angle. There might be a tree above that's blocking the other two, but not that one. So you just never know, like even if it has the same. But do your due diligence to make sure that it's potted correctly or planted correctly when you replant it, and do that. Or you can look at it and say, okay, I have 3 left. I'm going to leave those 2 because they're symmetrical. Either move that third over or get rid of that third and do a row of something different. Like it might be the opportunity to be.
But it's okay to dig up the ones that are doing okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And reposition
transplanting
them.
is great. Transplant, I either usually do it in the winter or early spring, at least in the South. I know this, it's different in different parts, but in the South, winter or early spring, dig around it like further out and get like some of that extra soils and some of those extra roots, and then just dig your hole large again and move it over. We transplant things fairly often. Sometimes we'll transplant whole rows of things that we just decided we didn't like there anymore.
Okay, that's encouraging.
Wow.
Yeah. And
That's
they
encouraging.
do wonderfully. Sometimes they do, like, Jay moved a row of, I want to say it was like Dootsy, I don't remember, but Jay moved a row of something like 5 weeks ago that looks better now than it did last year. Like, it didn't skip a beat.
Wow. Okay.
So that's okay.
Okay, that's really, really promising. Thanks.
Yeah. That's actually one of the things that when I was coming here, I was thinking about is, along with patience and letting things grow, like being willing to experiment, and it's okay to change your mind, and it's okay to, so that's one of those cases, like you can decide if it's a chance to improve it.
Yeah.
Okay. That's great.
Okay, I kind of have a similar question, but reverse, in that I had planted a bunch of antique roses because I love antique roses, not realizing that I also had a deer problem. So I probably have planted like 12 and only 1 has survived. And now I need to move it. But I'm trying to figure out like what it does. It looks great where it is, but now it is out of context with everything else. So I need to put it somewhere where it's going to look better.
Yeah.
So is it bad to move a plant that is doing really well?
That is so established. Yeah.
No, it's okay. I mean, there's always that chance of failure.
Yeah.
And that's part of life.
Yeah.
But I would say that just do it correctly.
Okay.
I always recommend getting as much of a sort of a diameter of the soil around and the roots around, and go deep and and then dig your hole and plant it and move it where you want to, and it should be fun.
Okay.
Taking some extra care, some extra TLC that first year to, like, if it's dry, to make sure it's watered, make sure you put it in a place that doesn't sit too low and stay too wet. Like, you don't want to move it to the wrong spot.
Yeah.
But like,
Okay.
if you intelligently move it to a similar spot, just that is better aesthetically.
Okay. Is there a particular time of year? I'm assuming it's not now. Or now
no,
is
this
good?
is good.
No, this
Yes,
is good. Okay.
yeah, early
Okay.
spring
And
is
then
great.
fall is okay.
Yeah, fall is good too. And just at least in Alabama, and I think Georgia's similar, our falls are quite dry. So if you do fall, I recommend here doing late fall. So
Okay.
you're starting to get back into, like, it starts to rain a little more in November and December.
Okay.
So like late October, not like early September.
Yeah,
like
when it's really
wait
hot.
a little. Yeah, well, yeah, because otherwise, if you move it in early September in the South, you're going to be watering it constantly
yeah.
to keep it.
Okay.
So.
Okay. What about pruning it back before I move it?
It wouldn't hurt, or right after you move it.
Okay.
One or the other. I don't think it makes much difference, but either right before or right after. And it might be easier to move if you do it before, because you'll be dealing with like less thorns and less
True.
branches. So maybe before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank
Great.
you. Thank you for that reminder. I didn't even think to ask about that, but your dead camellia example.
It's so sad too. It's so sad. It's just a twig. I need to get it up and out.
Yeah. Dig it up, move it out.
I know, but now I have to go back to that same specific spot that I got it, which is once a year, the Oakland Cemetery has a.
Oh, they have a great sale.
They have a great sale, and that's
Yeah.
where I got them. So I'm going to have to go back and
Yeah.
hound them at the cemetery.
Get you another one.
I know.
Yeah. Okay, you talk about digging your hole and loosening up the roots. Is there anything else we need to do when we get home with our goods to make sure that they grow well?
I mean, mulch is important. Mulch helps in the summer. It helps to keep moisture in. In the winter, it helps to protect the roots. So mulch is important. Fertilizers can be important, and it's according to what you're doing. I'm not an expert on fertilizer. I won't pretend to be. But fertilizer, it can be really helpful, whether it's like a time release that you do granulates, like if you're doing in the ground and like shrubs. We use hollytone a lot at home. It's a fertilizer that we use on our hollies and camellias and like a lot of just like green foliage to like give them extra nutrients. And then if it's potted plants, like your potted stuff, I'm a big believer in liquid feed. With potted plants, we're watering the nutrients out. So every time you water, the nutrients is literally going out the hole in the bottom of your pot. So if you add the liquid feed back into that, then it's going to help, to put that back in and continually restore it. So I'm a big, with potted stuff, I like liquid feed best. And then in the ground, like a time release or something like that. The fertilizers are good.
How often are you doing liquid feed to your potted plants?
In the summer, I recommend twice a week.
Twice a week?
I do.
That's so much more than I thought.
That's a lot. Okay.
So we have a local in Birmingham. We have a outdoor shopping mall that is really known for having beautiful potted plants. The Summit, yeah. And they do 3 times a week did back when I was around there more often. And they have like a big like pre-mixed thing that they drive around with the blue water and like do it. They 3 times a week. So I recommend twice a week. Because it's hot, most of the time you have to water your plants every single day in the summer. So I guess that would be a little better answer is in the summer, like when it's hot and you're watering more, the more you're watering, the more you should fertilize.
That makes sense.
So like in the winter, maybe once a week because you're watering less.
Once a week, even in the winter?
I would, like with pansies and things like that and snapdragons and that are like, profound bloomers if they're healthy. Like, I would do once a week.
Okay.
With those things.
Wow, did not expect that.
It'll make a huge difference. I learned that at a really early age. My mom's dad, my papa, lived with us. And when he was recovering from a heart surgery, and we didn't leave the house much that summer, and Mom planted like little bitty cell pack begonias. Like the cell pack is like 6 little ones in a pack. Like and Dusty Miller with them.
Oh, I love Dusty.
And those begonias were like the size of like a fairly large, like $100 boxwood, $150 boxwood, like huge, because she was liquid feeding them multiple times a week. And that's the only reason they did that. And they were beautiful, like insane.
Wow. Okay.
So like, if you like that, reward, that like gratification of what you've bothered doing, liquid feed really works.
That's the brand name.
No.
Oh, okay. What is the actual brand?
There's different brand names.
Well, what would you use?
Peters.
Okay.
Not that. It used to be Peters. It's Jack's. Jack's Classic is what we use and what we sell, and that's what most small garden shops sell. But there's Miracle Grow.
Yeah.
They're similar. It's just really very similar things, but we use Jack's.
Okay. I assume that in a garden shop there are people at the store that work there that are really taking amazing care of the plants because you have inventory and you want it to look good and stay healthy so you can sell it, right? So what are the things that they're doing to take care of the plants in the store that we should be doing at home that we're probably not? Other than maybe liquid feed twice a week.
Well, a garden shop like that usually is the term nursery comes from taking care of it between. So it's like at the nursery that your child goes to, it's like they're taking care of those plants between the grower and the person who's going to purchase it. And so yes, we are taking care of them, but it should be a short time period that we're taking care of them, hopefully. Like you'll buy them from the grower and then sell them within a week or two, hopefully. But when things do stay on the property longer, one of the important things is air, like spacing them out. So like if the cup is small or if the pot is small, then like giving it more air to breathe and to like move and grow. Because if the leaves are like all touching each other, then they start to get icky and like not healthy. So spacing things out. Deadheading is super important, and deadheading or cutting things back helps the plant to thicken up. Like if you heard the term leggy plants, like if you don't cut things back or deadhead them, then the plant gets leggy. Sometimes this can work to your advantage of like decorating in your house. Like if something is looking a little leggy, trim it and take them in and put them in a little vase in the house, like have bud vases and that kind of thing. Or if it's your basil, like cut it or your mint, like cut it and use it.
Yeah.
But it's good to cut things back and deadhead things. It's important. And then watering and liquid consistency. And that can be hard. Like life's busy, but consistency with watering and taking care of things, making sure that they're draining well, but they're watered regularly, not stressing the plant.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk houseplants for a minute. What can we do to really extend the life of our houseplants and make sure that they're looking their best all the time?
I guess that varies on what the houseplant is and what kind of person you are and how you're doing it. But if you're trying to really live with plants and like have the same ones, I would say repotting them really helps, like an annual repotting, setting them up for success from the beginning, like making sure that the pot that you're putting in has drainage holes. I will always look for like large platters or plates that I can make into saucers. So I use like anything from like sweet little teacup saucers for smaller plants up to like big like turkey platters or whatever. But it's hard to find potted indoor pots that have drainage holes and saucers. They just like don't exist in the market. If you look at the cost, like even of like a basic terracotta pot, the pot and the saucer generally cost about the same amount.
Yeah.
Which is like, what?
Yeah.
Why? But it's, the person that's making the clay is using about the same amount of clay to make that saucer as they are that pot that they're pulling up. So it's the weight of the clay. So a lot of times it's hard to find, the right one. So you kind of have to be creative and make that work for you. So like you might find a pot that doesn't have a drainage hole and drill the drainage hole, and then find a plate at the antique store or wherever that you can use as a saucer to create it. But setting it up for success is most important. Or the other option is to use your pot like a cache pot. So just sitting the plastic pot inside the decorative pot and then taking it out to water it. But you don't want to water it and let it sit in water. It's just not good for most houseplants, and it creates bugs, and it can, really be, it'll send the houseplant downhill really quickly. So I would say that's most important. But then after that, making sure that your houseplant has the right light conditions. If it's like a ficus needs more light than a dracaena. So the ficus, any sort of fig, whether it's a fiddly fig or a benjamina or whatever kind of ficus it is, needs a lot of light. So putting like a lot of times you want to plant, if you're like decorating, you want to plant in the corner. But if that corner has no windows and there are some windows like 2 feet over that get light, just move it over that 2 feet. If it really bothers you when company's coming, then shove it back to the corner again.
Yeah.
But like putting them in the light when they need light, and picking the right plant for the right spot. Like if you don't have light, then don't get a ficus. That sort of thing. So setting yourself up for success with the plant you buy and the way you pot it, and knowing and the way that you water it. I've always, like, if you are going to do the cash flow thing, like, get a big Rubbermaid container that you use just for watering, and set your houseplant off into that, water it, let it drain in there overnight, then just dump the water out and put the Rubbermaid under the bed or in the closet or wherever it lives. But that's an easy way. Like, when people say, like, take it to the bathtub, but you don't always want to drag that tree to the bathtub.
Yeah.
Like, get you a plastic container that works for the size, and then you can take that and do it. But, like, setting yourself up for success with it.
Okay. That's great.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm making plans already to, like, change up my watering station in the house. This is great.
The Rubbermaid's genius. I wouldn't have thought of that.
Yeah.
Well, okay, well, I have a fiddle leaf fig in my house, and it's doing great. I just planted it in July. Do I need to repot it, like change out the soil or something if it's doing well?
No, if it's doing great and everything is good and you don't feel like it's got any issues, then you're probably fine.
Okay.
As long as it's draining well and everything's going good, you're probably good.
So you were saying, like, repot your house plants every year or so. So should I only do that if it's doing poorly? Or
no,
like
I try to do it before it goes downhill.
Okay.
Like, be aware, like, are you having to water it more often? Are the leaves, like, showing some drooping?
It's happy.
Yeah,
It's
if it looks
sprouting
really
new
happy
leaves
and it's doing well, it's probably okay and you're probably doing everything right.
Okay.
Another thing I just thought of with houseplant care is heat and air vents.
Yeah.
Like, stay away from heat and air vents if you can, or get, like, something to redirect that heat or air vent.
Like, it'll dry out the soil? Or?
Yeah, in the winter, it can just really dry things out with the, like, especially gas heat, but any heat. And then in the summer, it can just be, like, too cold. You know, when they like ideal, like, perfect temperature. So it's better to not have a vent blowing directly on the houseplant if you can help it.
What about fertilizer?
Fertilizer, not as often as outdoor things because you're, again, not watering it as much. But it is good to use. They make liquid feed that's, like, for blooming plants.
Okay.
And then there's liquid feed that's more for green plants, I think all-purpose.
Okay.
Like, one's like a bloom booster, and the other will say, like, all-purpose. The all-purpose is good for greenhouse plants. And doing that, a couple times a year is great. Or you can also do granulates for that.
My issue with, and I've talked about this on the podcast before, but my issue with my fiddle leaf is that it is now doing so well that it's touching my ceiling, and I've been too nervous to cut it and pot it, so I've been putting it off. It's time, though. So what do I need to do?
Yeah, trimming things that are doing well like that can be intimidating. I had a customer who I trimmed. She had 2 fiddle leaf figs on either side of her fireplace, and I would trim them for her every year, like for years, because she was too nervous to do it herself.
Yeah.
But it's not a big deal. You go into the joint. So, like, if you have the leaves coming out and the little trunk, just follow that trunk down to the next set of leaves and just trim, like, on an angle right above that set of leaves.
Okay.
Most likely, it's going to put out 2 new shoots from there, so it's going to thicken the tree up.
Okay.
And it will end up being good for it.
What can I do with the piece I just trimmed? Can I turn that piece I just trimmed off into a new plant?
Maybe. That sort of thing is not as much my expertise. If I do it, I sometimes do it by happy accident.
Okay.
So you can enjoy it, put it in a vase, put it, like, on a nightstand or on a chest in the foyer or whatever. But enjoy it, and if it happens to root,
then I stick it in some dirt.
Yeah, if it happens to, or if you want to propagate it, like, read up on that, and it's going to be different for each plant how to do it. And there's, like, root stimulators that you can dip it in, that sort of thing. Probably not my expertise, but
our co-host Taryn, who's not here, told me that I can just put it in some dirt. But I've been too nervous to do it, so I haven't actually gone for it.
It might just do. Like, for me, those sorts of things are, again, maybe it's like setting my expectations.
Yeah.
But for me, that's just, if it happens, it's a happy accident.
Okay.
Like,
Okay.
I'm not a pro at growing things that way.
I want to talk about your house and the gardens at your house. So I've been following along on Instagram, and you purchased a really incredible home that is a Spanish...
It's 1925, Mediterranean.
Okay.
Yeah. I say
Yeah.
Mediterranean. It sort of has like a little bit of a French Riviera look to me.
Yeah, it's very Sunset Boulevard.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's really an awesome, incredible home. And I am so impressed with what you've been able to do with the grounds there. And so, just for our listeners, just so you know, like this, from the before photos, it was completely overgrown, not cared for
Yes.
a good long time.
So when we went to look at the house, we pulled into the driveway, sort of like swoops in, and we pulled into the driveway and pulled up and went in the front door and looked at the house for the first time, and we left. And then when we came back the second time to look at the house, we realized that this whole area to the left of the driveway came with the house. It was that overgrown.
Wow.
We actually thought it wasn't even part of our yard. And that day, that second time, we explored and found that there was the house was 1925. There was a 1925 giant rock fountain buried under ivy and kudzu and wisteria.
Oh my gosh.
And so we like started tearing through all that, and there's like, there's these, sort of semicircular shaped rock walls, and there's stairs, and so we uncovered like secret garden style, like uncovered all of that, which was really fun. And sometimes we miss that time, even though we still have a lot of work to do. But the romance of the finding those new things was really fun.
Talk us through that, because that is a lot of work.
So
Getting all that stuff out, figuring what to do, and
Yeah.
then turning it into what you imagine.
we took our time, which I would suggest, especially with a historic home, you have plenty to do anyway. So starting to clean up and cut back things, but not necessarily digging up from the beginning. We wanted to see if there was anything left from the history of the space. Like, we wanted to go through basically a year of like the 4 seasons to see, like, our daffodils going to come up? Is, our hyacinth or grape hyacinth or snowbells, or, what's going to happen? Is there anything we're missing? Which really, in our case, there ended up not being. So, we could have not waited. But we wanted to do that. We wanted to see like what was there and respected. The only really plant like that came up was some daylilies that came up that first summer, which we have saved and have transplanted. And, that's the only flowering, plant that came with the house. But so taking your time, like I said, cutting things back more than digging things up to begin with, like see what your structure is, and then starting to actually dig things up and like follow the roots of the wisteria to get rid of it. And Jay's been fighting wisteria for 4 years now, and looking at the structure and then starting to see how you want to create it and make it your own. So this particular space, we were able to sort of make 3 rooms. There's like the center room has lawn that like I roughed up the ground and put down the sod myself for the first time I'd ever done that. And then to the left has like a gravel path and alley of cherry trees. And to the right, we did a row of camellias and a row of hollies on the right side that we're going to probably do like a serpentine top to as they grow.
Oh, that's cool.
So like seeing how the space develops, and so creating those rooms and thinking about different textures. Like this area is going to have like a broad leaf, so I want this area to have a more of a soft, like contrasting to that, so that your walls that you're creating with your plants are different. Or like I wanted to see the rock walls. They're like knee wall rock walls. So it was like really important to me to like not cover those up because we just uncovered them. So like we ordered camellias. My friend Zach Westall, who's a landscaper, actually helped me find some camellias that were like stilted, like a standard. So there's a little trunk.
Yeah.
So I can see past, and then that also allows me to underplant with some really fun stuff. So, and those are things that Jay and I talk about together. He may be the one that planted most of the stuff, but we'll talk about oh yeah, we want to see those walls, or like here we're okay with covering the walls because you can see them here and here.
Right.
So like, you know.
Like talking it out and figuring out what you want. What about, well, actually I wrote down invasive, like how you have wisteria, you have ivy. There was another one that you mentioned.
Privet is really bad, and that's when we had to deal with. I love a privet hedge. Like you go like New England and have a beautiful privet hedge, and we actually kept one of ours. A lot of that is like a lot of things are like the maintenance of it. Like I love wisteria; it's beautiful, it's romantic, but you can't let it take over. Like if you're gonna have it, you've got to like train that one vine that's going to be and like you have to actively get rid of the other.
Right.
And the same with a privet hedge. Like if you're going to have a privet hedge, you've got to trim it so that it doesn't bloom or berry, because when it blooms and berries, the birds take the berries and then there's new little privet everywhere. But if it never blooms because you're trimming it, then really it's not gonna, so we kept one of the privet. We have a huge arch that goes over like our portion of the city sidewalk. That's one of the whole yard was covered in privet hedges at one point, but we kept that one giant one that's like 2 stories tall and has an arch you walk through, but we are keeping it trimmed. We don't ever let it bloom, and we pull up little ones that might come up around it.
Gosh. So what do you suggest to people who do have something that's invasive in there? Just be cutting it back? Do you need to dig it up? Do you need to kill it with a chemical?
Maybe all of the above. It's according to how bad it is and what the situation is. But yeah, I mean, trying to get rid of it is not just important for your own yard, but really for the ecosystem of your local, place. And sometimes you can do it yourself. Like Jay's a go-getter, and he gets out there with the pickaxe and the shovel, and he'll do that for like hours on a Saturday. I'm probably more, if I didn't have him doing that, I would probably call several friends and be like, let's have a wisteria digging party today. And but you can do it differently. Hire a landscape company, hire people to do it, or weekend warrior it.
Okay. Yeah. You have great friends if they're coming over for a wisteria digging party.
We have a friend, Bruce and Scotty Lanier, friends of ours, that have a really cool old house, and they have a sweet potato digging party every year that is so fun. And we all go, they plant the sweet potatoes and we all go harvest them and have food and drinks out in the garden.
That's really fun.
It's
that
cool
is really
idea.
fun.
But wisteria might not be as fun as
harvesting is a lot more rewarding.
I don't know. Getting out there with an axe, a reason to,
get out,
take out some anger.
Some anger. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, we've talked a lot about gardening. What about plants for people who don't like to garden? Is there anything you can do if you're not the gardener type?
Like inside or outside or both?
Both. Should they just...
I sort of touched on it a little earlier. If you really don't like gardening, then you're not going to need to plant peonies, and you don't need a perennial border, basically. You need to go simple. And it's according to what your yard is like. I mean, if you have a wooded yard and you don't like to garden, just plant azaleas and keep it natural and that sort of thing. If you have a more formal or smaller, more formal yard, hedges and lawn, and hire a yard man. Have it that way. Just keep it simple, because obviously you have to mow the grass and you have to trim your boxwood hedge 1 or 2 times a year, but that's low maintenance.
Yeah.
When especially if it comes to a more tailored space. So yeah, I would say those are things outside. Inside, like, I used to hate them. When I started in the garden shop business, the place that I started had been in business since the 60s, and they would order tons of pothos, like the classic, like, viney pothos. And I was like, they would put them like right up front. I was like, we cannot do this. Like, these things are so tacky, But as I've aged and grown, there is a place for it. Like, I would rather see a healthy pothos in a low lot living room than I would a dirty, dusty artificial plant, an artificial ivy. Like, if I like ivy better inside. I think it's more, sweet and English looking. But if I had to choose between a dusty artificial ivy and a live, fresh pothos, I'm going to pick the pothos.
Yeah.
So I think that, like, they are great. And there's different varieties. Satin pothos actually is one of my favorite houseplants. And it's a really pretty silvery blue. And it's a great low light houseplant that vines. And I really love it now.
They're so easy to take care of.
Yeah,
you
they
almost
are.
like don't even need to do anything at all for them for any amount of time. And
Yeah.
they're like, okay,
well, and
I'll
that
grow.
is part of it. Don't overwater. Make sure things have drainage. But also, I actually love, like, in hosting a party, like being Southern, like companies coming. You don't have to be the person that keeps houseplants.
Yeah.
You just don't. If your house looks great the way it is and it's clean and you don't have a dusty old fake ficus in the corner, like, that's okay if you're not a houseplant person. But when company's coming, maybe you go buy a $40 palm to enjoy for 2 or 3 months till it dies. That's part of the industry.
Yeah.
Like, we're growing them for the purpose of, and it keeps the industry going. Like, it keeps the business going. So if you're not don't feel guilty if that's not your thing. I don't think, personally. Like, just enjoy it. Like, decorate with it. And when it's gone, it's gone.
Yeah.
Or clip something from outside, if you have the energy to do so and you're not a plant person, but you want something green, go on a walk with your clippers. My friend Heather calls it a sip and snip. Like, go on take your glass of wine and your clippers and walk around and find a big piece of cherry laurel in the woods and cut it and put it in a clear vase. Like, you don't have to be a plant person if you're not. But if you are, have fun with it.
No, I think it's great to just give permission to, like, have something for a few months and let that be its time. It feels there's a guilt associated.
There is. I feel
that.
guilty saying it, but it is the truth of who I am. Like, I'm more of I'm busy. We're running 2 businesses. We have an old house and 2 dogs and have families and nieces and nephews. And we can't always do that. Now, there are some things, like, we have a monstera that was, or philodendron that was Jay's parents when he was not born yet. So we have, there's a 40-year-old houseplant in the corner of the dining room.
Wow.
But it's an easy houseplant. Yeah, a little bit.
Like, we can't let anything happen to it.
And his mom has, like, other, like, babies of it, and she gets it out and splits it and repots it, and it grows. So you can, if you're into it.
Yeah.
That's your thing.
Yeah.
But also, like, we have this fountain on a stair landing in our house. It's original. And it has 2 planter boxes, like, built into either side of the fountain. And I change those like 3 times a year. Like, they're in little black plastic pots. They slide down into that planter. It's so easy.
Do you put, like, moss on top?
And
Or?
I actually don't. That is something to touch on. Moss is beautiful on top of plants and pots, but it's not always the best thing. Like, if you don't see, like, if you have a basket and you put your houseplant in it and you don't see that black plastic pot, if it sits low enough or the mouth is small enough, I wouldn't moss it at that point, because it's going to be so much easier for you to take and put in that Rubbermaid and water and do your thing.
Smart.
So if you don't have to moss it, sometimes it's the best look, or sometimes it's one of those things where companies come in and I take mood moss, the like big chunky moss, and if I'm having a party, I dip it into like a bucket of water and let it soak up, and I pull it out and squeeze it like a sponge and dust it off, and I'll put it on top of things because I want it to look lush like that. But for like daily living, it's not the most practical. Like having to take that off, you're much less likely to water that houseplant if you have to take off that moss that's now dry.
Do I have to remove the moss to water it?
You need to at some point, unless you have the perfect drainage situation and a saucer underneath. But if it's in like a basket or something that doesn't drain, then you technically need to take it off to water it.
But I love that tip of like just throwing the moss on there if company's coming and you want that kind of full look.
That's what I do.
That's great.
Then also there's like Spanish moss that's a little easier, or like something that's not as difficult to like, that you can just refluff up, and that's not a bad look either. But it's so specific. It's not as va-va-voom as the mood moss or the sheep moss.
Because I have some mood moss in my fiddle leaf fig, and it's doing well. I have a saucer. I just water. It's a big pot, and I just water right on top of it. Yeah,
and that's perfect scenario. So like that's literally, sounds like you have the best case scenario where you have a pot with drainage, you have a saucer, and then in that case, the moss may even be helping like mulch to like keep some of the moisture in, and you may not have to water as often because of it.
Okay. I like it because it keeps my kids from trying to play in the dirt.
Yeah.
It like covers the dirt where they don't realize there's dirt in there.
Yeah.
That's great.
So I don't want to move it, but I have sometimes worried that it would like mold or like
change
get a
it out
fungus
periodically. Like that's
smart.
That you actually bring up. That's a good point. Is like if you do moss it, then don't be afraid to take it apart, make sure everything's good underneath. Fill the soil. That's when you can look and see if the roots feel too root bound.
Okay.
And then you can either change it out for fresh, or maybe you put the same back. And sometimes I do that little water trick and like 2 or 3 times to like freshen it up.
Like clean it kind of, or?
No, it doesn't really clean it. It just makes it look fresh again for a minute.
Okay. I'll try that.
Okay. I've got a question. How many times is too many for buying the same plant and killing it?
Because before you realize you
my gosh,
can't keep it alive.
Lavender.
Well, what is it?
It's lavender. Okay. I love it. I probably buy
What are you doing with it?
The wrong thing, apparently.
But are you planting it in the ground?
I've tried everything. I've tried potting it in a bigger pot after I get it, right? I've tried moving it around different places. I've tried it indoors. I've tried it outdoors. Last year I tried it in a really huge pot outside.
Yeah. So it's Mediterranean.
It's just not.
And this is a plant by plant basis situation.
Okay.
But it's Mediterranean, so it's arid. Like it likes arid environment.
Okay.
It's not going to want to be in your house except for a party.
Okay.
So inside
That's off the table.
Inside's off the table except for a party. Ideally, it would probably go in the ground if you have a ground top spot. When I plant lavender, and I got this tip from a landscaper friend a long time ago, but when you plant it in the ground, dig that hole larger, like we talked about earlier, and put like gravel in the bottom of it, and then fill it with good potting mix and pack it good, But that's going to help with that aeration of and the roots will grow through the gravel rather than just like into like our sort of southern clay ground
where it could get more compact. The roots get more compacted.
So that will help. And if you're going into a pot, you may do the same thing. Like get a big enough pot where it can really grow. Do gravel in the bottom, and then plant it that way. And that may help, but not inside.
Okay.
And then try outside and try giving it some sort of like a more airy environment.
I'm going to give it another go.
Yeah.
I actually just got another one this weekend.
Yeah.
I probably get
We were
about
told
3
not
a
to
year.
buy plants until April.
I know. It's just been too hard.
Well, and
been
with
too
that
hard.
too, I mean, that's something small enough that you could bring in the house. So
Right.
I always tell people that, like, yes, here, and it's probably the 1st of April, look at the 5-day forecast, kind of see, like,
Okay.
we've always said, like, Good Friday or April 15th is sort of our date, tax day, kind of thing. But if it's small enough to bring in and out, like, even like Boston ferns, like, if you see there's going to be a big freeze, you can grab those 2 Boston ferns and put them in the garage or the foyer, wherever, to protect them. So it's okay that you did that you cheated a little. But yeah, try that. If you have a place in the ground, I would try that.
Okay.
But they're probably not ideal for our climate, to an extent. Or
Yeah.
there's different varieties, and
See-
that's part of it too. And I have no idea what variety you have been getting, or if you've been getting the same one every time. Or
Lord
not.
only knows.
Yeah.
It's just whatever is at the plant store
Yeah.
when I'm feeling the itch again.
I love an annual lavender called downy lavender.
Okay.
So then you don't have to worry about killing it,
Okay.
because it is meant to die in our winter. But it gives you that look. I used to plant a giant row of it, and it comes. You can buy it in little 4-inch pots in the spring at any local garden shop. Usually, it's downy lavender. It's a little bit more like frilly, airy, but it puts off the tall purple and it has the smell.
Okay.
And so I love that one because it's like, do it, enjoy it, and then it's gone in the winter.
Okay.
Will do they all need like full sun? I've never had success just because I assume like in, Provence, it's like full sun.
Yeah, they do.
dry.
Like it's going to need pretty full sun, or at
Okay.
least 4 hours of good
Okay.
sun. Minimum. It's definitely not a shade plant.
Okay. I think my yard's too shady for it.
There's not a lot of blooming shade plants. I mean, there's some, or they're more interesting, delicate blooms that aren't like in your face.
Right.
But so like Terenia is a shade annual that works, or Impatiens. But
Lenten
not
roses,
as many.
those-
Yes.
Yeah, Lenten
Yeah.
rose is a good shade. Perennial bloomer. Like Ajuga is
I do like a June.
does really beautiful little purple blooms that have the look of like a lavender when they're blooming, and that's a great shade plant. Obviously, the plant doesn't look lavender, but the blooms kind of do.
Yeah. That's my biggest like frustration. I feel like I have so much shade and I want to plant like coneflower and peony and all these pretty things, and then but they'll never grow.
Yeah.
So-
Maybe you can find yourself a sunny spot somewhere, or eventually cut a
I
tree
can do
down.
some hydrangeas.
Yeah.
There's some where they get like some morning sun, but not like real.
Morning sun's one of my favorites. Like, I love geraniums, and they really prefer morning sun. So if you get like 3 or 4 hours of morning sun, it's a good spot to do some potted geraniums.
Okay, well, Mark, thank you so much for joining us. This was amazing. So many great tips. Can you tell everyone where they can find you and follow you?
Oh, yeah. The stores and Instagram. Instagram's about the only one I really do. The store is Shop Beham. And then my personal is Mark G. Thompson on Instagram.
Yes, shop with 2 P's and an E at the end.
Yes, SHOPPEBHAM.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much. This was great. This was the 3rd episode of our outdoor mini series, and then we have one more next week, and that'll be the end. But this was a great. I mean, it's perfect. We didn't cover any of this, so you really nailed it. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
And that's our show. You can find all of the show notes on our blog, howtodecorate.com/podcast.
To send in a decorating dilemma, email your questions to podcast@ballarddesigns.net so we can help you with your space.
And of course, be sure to follow us on social media at Ballard Designs.
Don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. And please leave us a review. We'd love to hear your feedback.
Until next time, happy
Happy
decorating.